from the Manchester United goalkeeper. But if you're going to challenge the Liverpools and the Cities for the Premier League, you need a player in the front line that is way more effective than this guy is. And I know there are people who, and obviously Arteta's one of them, he sort of can't see past them, it seems. And I know they don't really have many other options, but that's his choice. It's his choice. He's had transfer windows to address this. He hasn't done it. He's unlikely to do it in January unless they panic. Maybe he will with the Jesus injury. I don't know. But what we do know is Chelsea were willing to sell the player because he wasn't prolific and consistent enough. And let's not forget, Arsenal buy him as a midfielder. That didn't work. So there was another mistake from Arteta. Now he plays him up front and he works hard and he runs and he's a good guy and he's got a great attitude. But in terms of being good enough for Arsenal to go to the next level, whether it be the FA Cup, the Champions League, or tracking this Liverpool team down, if they don't get a goal scorer in that position, they're not winning the Premier League. End of story.
Is that fair?
I think at this point it's fair to say that. You know, I've watched them for the last 6 months, and you kind of feel that we're waiting for the Arsenal of the previous 2 seasons to come out in them, and you know it's there. You know it's there in them, but obviously, you know, for whatever reason, this season we haven't seen it so far. And so at that point, you know, you have to either go into the market and freshen things up. You know, we're missing big players at the moment, and listen, putting the ball in the back of the net is the hardest thing to do as a football player. It's very fine margins, and at the moment those margins we're missing out on. And listen, it doesn't help that we go and play against Newcastle the week before, who have a striker that we're heavily linked with. It's January, the window's open, and then we come and play in the FA Cup against United. You know, they go down to 10 men, we have so many chances, we can't score. All of these things coming in the same week, it doesn't help Mikel. You know, it doesn't help Arteta at all. And it only highlights and sheds light on the fact that, you know, they need firepower.
I'm not having this discussion about any player, if it's just 1 or 2 games. That would be ridiculous. But there's a pattern here, and there has been for a while. But he's not the only one. You know, Marino, ineffective. Gabriel, you know, bit of a mistake for the Jesus goal, for the Fernandes goal. Tries to be too clever with the header on the halfway line, gets caught out. Declan Rice missing chances when he comes off the bench, an easy header should have. So there are many other factors, but that's the biggest one. I think the biggest one for me, because when everybody's fit, the back four will take care of itself. Young Lewis Skelly's a good player, Calafiori's a good player, Timber's a good player, centre halves are strong, keeper's been strong for the most part. Midfield can be strong when everybody's fit. It's up here. That's where there's a gaping problem.
I think that's where the frustration comes from, is because, you know, it took Mikel a while to really build a framework and get the club back to, you know, challenging for the title. And you're so close, you know, and it must have been agonising last year to have missed out on, you know, a point or two. And when you feel that close and you just miss out, and you realise that there's just a couple of pieces, you know, two maximum pieces to complete the puzzle, that's where the frustration comes from. And I think that's what we're seeing now, you know, and where the pressure is going to mount.
But you have to be ruthless, don't you, as a manager? You're like, these guys have done well for me, but we have to make a decision here. Where's the money need to be spent? Yeah. I'm sorry, but you're going to be a squad player because we're going to go in the market for this guy who's prolific.
And how long's Jesus out for as well is another question after we saw him go down.
Yeah, but we just don't know what that injury is. I mean, it looks so innocuous. But so these are all the questions for Arteta. But on the other side of the coin, it's been a brilliant story because Bruno Fernandes was a player who was getting sent off and he's disciplined, and was he a leader for them? Well, you have to say, and this is only a small sample, because we know he's a good player. We know that. But his attitude and his performances in the Liverpool game and in this game, I think, dragged the team alongside him.
I'm going to interrupt you because I want to go to the Manchester United managers. We've got Ruben Amorim. More than anything, looking at this, obviously Manchester United turning a corner a bit, but really I think the boys are... The big story today is Arsenal, isn't it?
To be honest, I think it's quite balanced. I think when you look at this Arsenal team here and the fact that they weren't able to break down this Manchester United side after having an extra player for 60 minutes, I think that's a concern. You look at some of the quality of the chances that they had and they weren't great. I think for some you'll probably mention, say, people like Saka being out. But as Craig was saying, there are a lot of eyes on Kai Havertz. And I think the misses that he has, I think after this game's done now, they're out of the competition which they would have believed that they could go on and win. In reality, I'm sure everyone's been in the situation that's played the game before. If you play for a team that has aspirations to win it, you can't just say, oh, it doesn't matter, next time, Kai. These are serious conversations. These are serious moments. These are game-changing moments for players who should be doing better. And as a consequence, today it's cost them. Obviously, I'm not talking about the penalty because, as Craig said, people miss penalties. Me, myself, I'd be hiding if there was a chance to take a penalty. But they need to take those chances. And there's so much disappointment that exists in the stands when the chances don't happen. And with that, now to talk about United, the more chances you see them miss, the higher your confidence is. And I've been very, very impressed. Their last 2 games, going away to Liverpool, going away to Arsenal, United essentially defensively have looked very good. But they've looked very good in terms of their individual talent, their collective in terms of the way that the team want to play, and the desire and the willingness to suffer and to look around and know that other people are suffering with you. Whatever's being asked of these players at this moment in time, they're willing to do it. Even though it's not necessarily something that they want to do, they understand the value to the team. And we've not necessarily seen their best form of football in attack, but to draw at Anfield and to come here and get this result whilst being down to 10 players, so much credit needs to go out to them. And I think even listening to Amarim there in his press conference, the way he's talking about the club, the fans are getting on side, the players getting on side, and he's starting to build what I believe is going to be a strong culture for the club going forward. And best of all, they're in the hat for the next round of the FA Cup and they've got a home tie, so more power to them. I didn't necessarily see it coming when Dalot got sent off, but the fact is, they dug in, they gave themselves a chance, they took the chance, and now they can celebrate as they travel back up to Manchester.
Nathan, what's changed in these last 2 matches compared to those 4 consecutive defeats after the City match?
It's a good question. I think for Amarim himself, he'll say that training time on the pitch is a key issue, and maybe he has had more time to be able to do that, and as a consequence you can see more in terms of an identity. But I would still argue the case that their identity in terms of attack is not as great as it could be at this moment, but their identity in terms of how they wanted to defend is definitely there. The desire to get back into position, which realistically should always happen anyway, but you see it because now you see not just players but a manager that demands it. They get in there, they know their roles, they know their positions. They know that you have to throw yourself at the ball. They know that everything has to be done in a way whereby you're doing everything you can to make sure the ball doesn't go into your net. And also, Altay having a good day in goal for them today. That's what you need. At times, De Ligt is making clearances. Martinez is making clearances. People doing well in 1v1s. There's a spell where Garnacho's wing back, but penned in on a back 5. But he's doing the best that he can against Martinelli. And that's the expectation. That's the standard. And I think those players have bought into that. Yes, you could make the case that maybe in these last 2 games they've been exceptional because they've been significant underdogs. But the fact is they still needed to do it. We've seen United for the last 2 years, maybe longer, let themselves down in the biggest moments on the biggest occasions. But in these last 2, when people have watched them, almost expected them to collapse, they've shown the exact opposite. They'll be disappointed to have not gotten the 3 points against Liverpool the other day, even though Liverpool obviously had chances. And for today, they'll be wondering, well, what happens if we can sort our attack out? What happened if we had 11 players for the entirety of the game? And now, considering they've just played the top 2 teams and ain't worried about anybody else in this division, and maybe they can finish the season off in a way that they probably think they should be.
I think they were so shambolic in those 2 or 3 games, particularly Bournemouth and Newcastle, to Nedum's point, that I think he's decided clearly that it's all about shape and it's about defending. And we